Honey feels like the most harmless thing in your kitchen. A little bear-shaped bottle, maybe a spoonful in your tea, something you barely think about while you're pouring it. But for most of human history, that same substance was worth more than almost anything else you owned, and getting it could genuinely kill you. Not kill you in a dramatic, exaggerated YouTube title kind of way, actually kill you. Falling from a cliff, stung into anaphylaxis, dead on the rocks kind of kill you. And people did it anyway, not once, by accident. Over and over on purpose, for thousands of years, generation after generation, teaching their kids how to do it too. Here's the proof. In a cave in southeastern Spain, called Cuevas de la Araña, the Spider Caves, there's a painting in red ochre that's roughly 8,000 years old. It shows a figure climbing what looks like a rope ladder up a sheer cliff face, one arm reaching into a crack in the rock, a basket hanging from the other. Around the figure, dozens of tiny dots swarm through the air. Bees, painted deliberately larger and more frantic than they'd actually look, because the artist wanted you to feel the danger, not just see it. This is the oldest known depiction of a human being interacting with honeybees, and whoever made it thought the scene was worth putting on a wall forever. They weren't wrong. A similar scene turned up in 2013 at a rock shelter called Barranco Gomez, about 7,500 years old, showing the same basic idea, a figure suspended on a rope, reaching into a wild hive. What's strange is how detailed it is. You can make out individual bees. You can make out the tension in the rope. Someone spent real time getting this exactly right, which tells you it wasn't a casual doodle. It was something worth remembering precisely. Researcher Manuel Bea, who studied the site, pointed out something important. These paintings weren't just recording a food source, they were recording a risk. The whole point of the image was the danger, a person hanging in open air, arms full, nowhere to go if the bees turned on them. So why take that risk? Why not just eat literally anything else? Because for most of human history, nothing else came close. Honey is roughly 80% sugar. Your ancestors didn't have refined sugar, fruit juice concentrate, or anything remotely close to that kind of energy density sitting around in nature. A wild beehive was, without exaggeration, the most calorie-dense food source a person could find without killing a large animal first. And unlike hunting a boar or a deer, it didn't fight back. It just stung. That trade-off, extreme risk for extreme reward, is exactly the kind of bet evolution built us to take. And it wasn't limited to Spain. Honey hunting scenes show up in rock art on at least 3 separate continents. Cave paintings in India predate the Spanish examples by a few thousand years. There's evidence of it in Africa. There's evidence of it in Australia. Completely different cultures, completely isolated from each other, with no way to compare notes, independently decided the same thing. Get near the nest, use smoke to calm the bees down, rip out the comb, and get out before the colony recovers enough to retaliate. No hive of their own, no protective suit, just smoke, timing, and nerve. Here's where it gets interesting, though. This wasn't reckless. It was a system. Smoke works on bees because it interferes with their alarm pheromones and makes them gorge on honey in case they need to evacuate. A full bee is a docile bee. Ancient honey hunters clearly understood this, even without the chemistry to explain it. They'd learned, through trial and probably plenty of error, exactly how much smoke, exactly how much time, exactly how close they could get. Every successful raid was built on the failures of the people before them who got it wrong. The ones who used too little smoke, climbed too fast, or stayed a few seconds too long. And once you had the honey, the reward didn't stop at "it tastes good." Honey doesn't spoil, practically ever. When Howard Carter's team cracked open the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, they found sealed jars among the burial goods. Inside was honey that had been sitting there since roughly 1323 BCE, over 3,000 years. And it was, by every chemical measure archaeologists could run, still honey. Some accounts even claim it was still edible. The reason comes down to 3 separate defenses stacked on top of each other. Honey has almost no water content, which starves out anything that needs moisture to grow. It's naturally acidic, which most bacteria can't tolerate. And bees add a trace enzyme that produces a slow, steady release of hydrogen peroxide, a natural antimicrobial. Nothing about this was designed by humans. Bees built a self-preserving food source by accident, and ancient humans figured out how to exploit it without knowing a single one of these mechanisms by name. Which meant honey wasn't just calories, It was calories that could be stored, transported, and kept for years without rotting, at a time when almost nothing else could make that claim. In a world with no refrigeration, no canning, no way to preserve most food for more than a season, a jar of honey was one of the only things you could put away and trust would still be good a decade later. Meat rotted, grain attracted pests, fruit turned within days. Honey just sat there, patient, unbothered, exactly the same. That's not a snack. That's a strategic asset. The Egyptians clearly understood this. Honey shows up in their tombs not as an afterthought, but as deliberate provisioning, food meant to last the journey into the afterlife, because it was one of the only foods that actually could. It was used as medicine, packed into wounds as a natural antiseptic centuries before anyone understood what bacteria even were. It was offered to their gods. It was even used to pay wages in some records, which means, for a while, honey wasn't just valuable, it was money. A single jar was doing the job of currency, medicine, and preserved rations all at once. And here's the turn. All of this, the cliffside raids, the smoke, the risk of falling to your death or getting stung into a swelling mess with no modern treatment for it, all of it happened before humans figured out how to domesticate bees. For thousands of years, there was no other option. If you wanted honey, you found a wild colony, and you took your chances. Organized beekeeping, where humans actually built and controlled hives instead of raiding wild ones, is believed to have started around 3000 BCE. That means humans were willing to risk serious injury and death for this substance for at least 5,000 years before anyone thought to simplify the process. 5,000 years of climbing cliffs for something you could just as easily have left alone. So think about that the next time you squeeze a plastic bear over your toast or stir a spoonful into your tea without a second thought. That same substance once required a person to hang from a rope over open air, surrounded by an animal capable of stinging them dozens of times in a matter of seconds, with nothing waiting below them but rock. They did it because the payoff was worth the risk. An almost unmatched source of energy, in a form that could sit in a jar for literal millennia without spoiling. A food so good at outlasting time that it followed people into their tombs. The bear-shaped bottle didn't get safer because humans got braver. It got safer because we spent thousands of years learning exactly how much danger we were willing to accept for something sweet enough to last forever. Somewhere between a cliffside raid and a squeeze bottle, we quietly won that bet. If you want to dig deeper into any of this, the research is linked down in the description.